Hey, what's going on? So, I wanted to come on and talk about relationships and just understanding the first, the seventh, the second, and the eighth house. So, the first and the seventh house axis, this is the Mars and Venus axis. The first house, Aries rules the first house. Well, the first house rules Aries. The seventh house rules Libra. With the second house, this is another Venusian house ruled Taurus. The second house rules Taurus. With the eighth house, a Martian house, Mars rules. The eighth house rules Scorpio. So that was like a lot. So I wanted to come on because in terms of the way things are changing in society economically, and when we're dealing with the north nodes, the nodes right now currently have just left the second and the eighth house, and now the nodes have moved into the first and seventh house. So fitting, right? There is such a social upheaval right now regarding relationships, regarding marriage. There's a social reconstructing right now in our society. And with my own experience, I gained some insight in regards to marriage, in regards to technology and how things are rapidly changing, and autonomy, and just understanding as an individual what marriage in astrology, what is marriage designed for, and balancing the first and the seventh and the second and the eighth, because it is something else depending on your background, your socioeconomic level, your value system, what your parents instilled in you, because they didn't have social media, even down to religion. Like, everything's changing. So those typical values that we're bringing from our second house, they're they're shifting in the sense of, as it relates to the eighth house, because if you're able to adapt, using your cardinal first and seventh house energy, if you've been able to adapt, right, and you've been able to adjust, what that doesn't mean that the person that you are wanting to mate or marry, if you two coming together in the eighth house, is that going to be mutual? Because things are changing so fast. So it's like, you meet someone, right? So we all start at the first house, our ascendant, and we go through our value system, our third house, as kids, our fourth house, all of these experiences, right? So the world is one way. I'm 36. We played outside. How we dated was different. How we met people was different. Things were just so different back then. By the time you get to the seventh house, depending on your decisions, depending on so many factors, so coming from my generation, if you have gotten married, if you made that commitment, your seventh house commitment, let's just say when you were 28, 25, even within the past 10 years, things have changed so much. So if you're not able to adapt, by the time you get to the eighth house, which takes time, it's a whole shit show. It's a shit show. It really is. And it shows online where, people are like, what the hell is going on? And it's seen in astrology. I'm seeing it in my chart. I don't know if y'all are looking at y'all chart. However, when you're looking at your first, your seventh, your second, and your eighth house, you're going to have to take your own personal experience, heavy on a personal experience, when you're deciding on who you're going to connect yourself with. Because here's the thing that is interesting. When you connect yourself with through the seventh house, because we don't have arranged marriages, a lot of us fall in love. We just want to marry someone, and depending on your placements, it's going to take time to get to the eighth house, especially if you haven't been educated in a certain way to understand the socioeconomics aspect of marriage. If you haven't been educated in a sense to just understand certain things, you're getting married based on something called love, you know, and you'll accept certain things when you first make that commitment. And then by the time you get to the 8th house, things are horrible and you're not understanding like what is going on. When you kick it out of Venus, when you're being accepting and wanting to balance out, then when Mars kicks in, and then you start seeing these things surface, Scorpio, 8th house, you're like, what in the heck is going on? And it's sort of like, this is what's going on in society. Society, in terms of the 8th house, between men and women, are like, what the hell is going on here? I brought all of these values from since I was a kid, and they just aren't working anymore. And that's why it's so good that, you know, the systems are switching, and those of us who have been able to adapt, be adaptable to learn astrology, learn deeper ways of relating, understanding the spiritual component, the energetic component, not, you know, seeing the heck with religion and all that kind of stuff, because there are some, you know, some principles in the Bible. However, it is no longer practical, the Christianity in the Bible, and astrology is far more practical in your experience. And because the families are not as involved, and I'm speaking of middle class, lower class families, are not as involved in the choosing of partners. Like, we don't have arranged marriages. We don't have these things. It is imperative as individuals, if we want relationships to work, that we, of course, learn, adapt, study, understand our chart, understand our partner's chart, and have common goals. And that's where you get to the 10th house. I'll do another video on that. But even just starting with the 1st, the 7th, the 2nd, and the 8th, and having your partner in that synastry, and of course some common sense, you can really understand if you two are on the same page or not. Like, you can understand. And then, you know, through the aspects, you can get to kind of see if you guys are going to be able to possibly work through it, resolve it, solve it. Is the chart balanced in the synastry, you know, in the composite chart? So with a lot of these social issues that are coming up, as astrology becomes more mainstream, which it is, you know, it's pretty obvious, people will begin to learn how to use the system of synastry and different systems to adapt to, you know, with technology and things. And we can build another layer on top of what our ancestors have left with us, because, you know, religion worked for thousands of years. It was just a part of our culture, our society. Technology is changing so many things, and to accept that will be very wise. To accept this shift, to adapt, and to partner up with someone who is in alignment on a spiritual level, a practical level, where it's balanced, where you guys are balanced. And I'm gonna, you know what, I'm gonna break down the houses in another video. I'll be back.